Okay. Hi, Olivia. I'm Vedika. So before we start the interview, I just want to ask you, what do you know about adjust teen stress?
I know that you're part of HOSA and it's the first year of your competition. And I'm really glad that you guys decided to compete in that because I think it's so important, especially for teens and our generation. And I've seen a lot of your social media posts and I think they're really great. And I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. So yeah, adjusting stress is just like we decided to choose this topic because stress is like a very sensitive topic for some people, and like we chose to discuss it because not many people talk about their mental health these days, especially like teens. And because like we're juniors, we want to embrace the stress we have. And so we try to tell stories through like our series, Teen Stories Told, and you're one of our um, you're one of our people that we're interviewing today.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. So that's Vedika. She's gonna be taking notes, and I'm Abba, and I'm gonna be taking your interview. So my first question is just tell me a little bit about yourself regarding extracurriculars, your goals, passions, whatever it might be.
Yeah, of course. I guess I'll start a little bit at the beginning. So I started piano and singing when I was around 3 years old, and I actually got into medicine through music. So when I was around 8, I started performing at retirement homes, and I thought it was really cool to see the dementia patients whenever they would recognize a song I would play, whether it was Chopin, Bach, or anything like that. And I got to know the healthcare providers in the retirement homes as well, and that's really when I got into medicine and just patient care, and I learned a lot from that. And so then my freshman year of high school is when I really got into medicine, when I got accepted into the Medical Science Academy, which was kind of it's like not a club, but a separate group for people at my high school. And we would have a lot of our classes together, and we would take pre-med classes as well, like patient care and pathophysiology. And through that, I joined HOSA, and my sophomore year, I became an officer. And I mean, we had a huge HOSA chapter, and I mean, it was really fun. We did a Be the Match fundraiser, which I was in charge of. We did a Toss the Stigma challenge, which is also a mental health challenge that we did for HOSA. And we just post mental health misconception videos, and it was really cool. And then my beginning of my junior year, I moved to Texas from California, and I joined hosted there, and I became the social events officer. But in moving, I had to decline the offer of host a president at my old chapter. So I decided to start my own high school chapter of the American Medical Women's Association at KCAL. And it's been a really cool journey. And I've gotten to know so many great people, and especially the officers on the board. And it's the first high school chapter in the nation, which is really exciting. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to advocate for women and other minorities in medicine. And if I hadn't moved, I just wouldn't have had that experience.
All right, thank you, Olivia, for that introduction. So when it comes to mental health, what is your point of view, and how has mental health affected your life?
So I think that a lot of people are not scared, but uncomfortable to talk about mental health because a lot of it stems from personal issues or trauma. And I think that we just live in such a fast-paced society, and we go through so much stress daily. And I think that's really contributed to especially teens' mental health. And I just think that they're not so open to talking about it because they think it's normalized. And I do think that as a society, we are moving towards a more healthy environment when it comes to mental health, when because you hear so many people voluntarily going to therapy, me, myself included. And I just think it's really great that we're moving forward and trying to make it more aware that people are struggling. And for me, so when I moved here from California, it was due to the deaths of 3 family members. And I already had a pretty stressful academic pathway going, and with HOSA and my AP classes and all of that, and writing music and continuing both of those aspects of my life. And I didn't really know the process of grief. It was very new to me. And I used to be very, it used to be hard for me to talk about it, but I think now it's really important that people that go through trauma and they go through grief and they go through all of that, it's a lot of people don't know how to process it. And I think it's important to talk about it because so many people go through it and you just never really know who's going through it. So I developed an eating disorder, which also used to be hard for me to talk about. And it was more of a coping mechanism. I didn't know how to control different aspects of my life. So I focused in on my eating disorder. And before you knew it, every single week you're losing 3 to 5 pounds and then you're spiraling and then you end up in the hospital. And I think that I didn't know that it was unhealthy, really. I just thought it was, oh, this is my coping mechanism. I didn't really think anything of it because there wasn't really much awareness for it in my life. No one was really talking about it. And when I moved to Texas after the deaths of 3 family members, it got worse, as you could probably imagine. So I made the choice for myself to go to therapy. And it was really hard to make that decision. I didn't really want to recognize that I had a problem, and I just kind of wanted to forget everything. I wanted to forget that I moved, that all those people died, and that I was having this eating disorder. And I think that I just had trouble facing the reality that I was putting myself through. But going to therapy it changed my entire life. And I think that if you really do need help, you should reach out. And it doesn't have to be a big whole thing where you reach out to everyone, and just simply like go to therapy once and see if you like it. And there's so many options to go there to get into that path. And so I talked to my parents because we're really close, and we agreed that I should go on meds for a little while, just short term. And I think that it's just important to know when you're having a problem and you're struggling, and to really just look at it and decide that you want to fix it. And with me, my therapist and my parents, and they all decided that this would be the pathway that I was on. And it really helped me. And it was all because I went to therapy and I made the decision to go and better myself and help myself to become a better version of me. And I learned that a lot of the time with stress, especially academically, we always think, especially teens, that we have to do this assignment, we have to get this leadership position, we have to do all these things. But when you change your language and you change your mindset to, you get to do this, you get to take this test, you get to have an education, you get to do all of these, you get to have all these experiences, and you get to learn all of these things. I think it really changes your mindset. And I think that when you learn that to have gratitude and that you get to do these things that seem so hard, I think that really changes your mental health as well and your stress load, and it really helps motivate you. And I think that it's also a new coping skill as well for me, just to change the language in my head, how I talk to myself and how I approach different tasks. And yeah, so mental health, I'm really big on it. And I think that if you need help, you really should reach out, and it's not a burden to anyone. I think that everyone should help each other out. We're a community, and we probably all are going through very similar things.
Earlier, you talked about how music was a big part in your life. And I know that you're a songwriter and you're also into modeling. So these are not common things within like teens and stuff. So these are some really unique aspects about you. How do you think that your mental health has changed because of songwriting and modeling for both like negative or positive aspects?
Yeah. So I don't do much of modeling anymore. I do just little things and things that more honor my body instead of punishing it. But with songwriting, I it's very, very positive. It again was that whole journey of me healing and trying to become a better version of myself, and to heal from my eating disorder and the loss. And I love to write poetry. I always have. And I also have been playing piano, like I said, for a very long time. And I love to compose songs just on the piano, but then during around eighth grade, I started just amateur writing, and I would put my poetry to my piano compositions. And then soon it just kind of became this new healthy coping mechanism, which I also figured out with my therapist. And instead of this, maybe I could write songs, and try to let my feelings out that way. And I think, music is it's a more healthy option than the other. And I actually have gotten so many opportunities through that. I have recorded multiple songs, 10 exactly, with Joe Lunis, who works at Dallas Luminous Studio. And he's a Grammy winning music producer, and he's amazing. And I'm so glad that I've gotten the opportunity to produce music with him. And it's been really great. So, this new coping mechanism that had to do with my mental health, I didn't really know that it could be so so big in my life now. And now I write music on the regular, and I get to go to these recording studios, and it's really awesome.
So as we were looking through your resume, me and Vetica both know, and our whole adjusting stress team knows that you're a very accomplished individual. You took various different AP courses and academically challenged yourself. You obtained over 200 volunteer hours. You used to be a Starbucks barista. You have a lot of things going on, and your music career as well. So how, through all these challenging things and all these achievements and all the hard work, how do you find time for yourself, and why do you think it's important to do so?
Well, there are certain parts of my stress that I really love, but then also certain aspects, like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. But then there's again that phrase, you get to do it, you don't have to. And I think that it's really important to have self-care in your daily routine as well. I think part of that is changing your language and changing the way that you think sometimes so that it's more healthy. And but that's not the only aspect of self-care. I think self-care is, yeah, going to therapy, dealing with your problems and your trauma, and dealing with all these things that you're struggling with. But it's also more just the little things, like taking yourself out on a run or going to a cafe and studying to gain motivation, or baking new recipes, which is something that I really enjoy. But I also love reading, not for my AP literature class or, but just anything that you really love, and you're not just taking time for yourself. And I feel like people, even when they do take time for themselves, they still get burned out even when they're done taking time for themselves. And I think that's because people are, when they're not being very productive the entire time, then they feel overwhelmed. But really taking time for yourself is just letting loose your thoughts and doing exactly what you want to do for yourself in that moment, not really thinking, oh, I'm not being productive. Always just take time for yourself, because that's really the only way that you're going to be completely healthy in your mind and go through all of these stressful tasks every single day. You're going to have a little breather. And I think it's so important. But another aspect of self-care, I think, is volunteer work as well. I think it's really rewarding to volunteer and do community service as well. And so if you want to be productive but also take care of yourself, do something in the community that gives you joy. Like, for example, with the not American Cancer Society. Well, that too, I'm doing a Relay for Life. So we're organizing that right now. And that brings me a lot of joy because my grandma died of cancer. And it really brings me a lot of joy to work on that community service project and kind of like honor in her name for me. But also with the American Medical Women's Association, right now we're doing a Camp Fed USA flower fundraiser, and we're purchasing flowers at market price and distributing them for free to parents in the Keller ISD community. And it raises money for women's education in Africa. And I just think that it's so rewarding to do volunteer and community service like that, because it's so rewarding to help other people in a way that's really meaningful to you.
All right. So as a senior, you're a senior at Timber. Um, I know you're, going into the whole college process as a senior with a double major in biochemistry on the track of pre-med and music composition. So how has that college process been for you, and how do you think your mental health standpoint will change going to this new era in your life?
Yeah. Um, well, I think the college process for anyone you talk to who's going through it is pretty stressful. I mean, whether you apply to 3 colleges or I applied to 15, I mean, it's stressful either way. And I think what's most stressful for people is that they don't really know where they're going to go and they don't really know what to expect when they get to college. And I mean, that's the same for me too. And I think that again, I'm gonna mention it again. You don't have to apply to college. You don't have to go to college. You get to, you get to have an education and further your passions and your interests. And I think that going into college, I think I'm gonna be a lot more healthy mentally. And I think it's because I know myself more and I'm stronger than I was before. I've gone through a lot of hard things in high school, whether that be stress academically, whether that be through music, whether that be through personal problems. And I think that I'll go into college. I'm already an independent person. And I think a good way to put it is that I'm not worried about college. I'm just nervous. I think I'm not worried about myself, but I'm a little nervous. And I think it's healthy to be nervous to a degree. But I just think that I have anxiety and I've been diagnosed with depression as well. And I think that it's just so important to take care of yourself in the way that you are still experiencing anxiety. You still have sadness, but it's not to an unmanageable level because you're supposed to have highs and lows, but it's supposed to be like this, not this. And so I think that it's just I think that going to college, I'm not worried about it, just a little nervous. If that makes sense.
So what do you do to de-stress from a really long day, whether that's academically, your involvements, whatever?
Um, a lot of the time I hang out with my mom. We go to Summer Moon a lot or Axiom Cafe, and she's kind of my best friend. Um, she's both my mom and my friend, and I it's such a great way to hang out with someone you love whenever you're stressed, someone that takes your mind off of all the heavy load that's up there. Um, but if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I don't really want to talk to anyone. I usually read. It's kind of a way for me to exit where I am and go into some other place for about 30 minutes. And I think it's really important, like whether you're taking a study break or whether you're taking a break from volunteering for a little bit. I think it's really important to give yourself, even though if you only have a limited amount of time, like 15 minutes, always take a break because you're going to study the best and you're going to do the best in life when you give yourself that time.
Okay, Olivia. So I have one more question for you. So lastly, what would you say to a freshman that is currently struggling with their mental health? And or like what would you say to your younger self?
Um, Both to myself and to freshmen struggling with stress. I think that I would go back to that highs and lows analogy that I was explaining, and how whenever you're up here, you're always going to go back down here. Whenever you're down here, you're always going to go back up, and there's always going to be a middle ground in between. And I think it's a really comforting feeling to know that when you're all the way down here, you're going to be up here. And when you're up here, you're going to be down here. It's never constant. I think that it's just really comforting to know that you're never going to be at the best time of your life and you're never going to be at the lowest point of your life forever. So just to expect that life is like waves, kind of for lack of a better term. And it's never just going to be constant usually. And I think that's a comforting thought when it comes to assignments and clubs and personal problems as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Olivia, for coming to this interview and your words of encouragement and your very inspiring story. So, the last thing I have to ask is if you could send us some pictures of you and you, like, in action with your volunteer work, whatever, in your music for us to post when we post your interview, as well as you can like say one right now or text me it later, like a line, a silly line for your bio. We've gotten like mustard advocate. Someone can do Animal Crossing express like weird impressions. Is there anything from the top of your head you can think of? If not, you can just let me know later. Just a silly line,
I'll let,
unique.
I'll let you know later.
And then yeah, and then I have the picture of the adjusting stress board. So can I
Great.
just take one picture like right here of all three of us?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Olivia, for coming. We really
Thank you.